Welcome to our podcast, where we discuss real-life stories that inspire, educate, and provoke thought. Today's story is about Myo and Charlotte, two childhood best friends who grew up together and shared everything with each other. However, as they got older, Myo's anxiety began to take over her life, leading her down a dangerous path. So, let's dive into the story and explore what happened. Can you tell us more about how Myo's anxiety started to affect her life?
Yes, of course. Myo's anxiety started to become more and more overwhelming as she got older. She would worry about everything and anything, which made it difficult for her to enjoy life and try new things. She would cancel plans at the last minute and was constantly consumed by her thoughts.
It sounds like Myo was really struggling. How did Charlotte respond when Myo told her about her anxiety?
Charlotte was incredibly supportive and promised to be there for Myo no matter what. She tried to encourage her friend and offer words of advice, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough to ease Myo's anxiety.
That must have been tough for both Myo and Charlotte. So, what happened next?
Myo had a nightmare one night that shook her to her core. She dreamt that she was trapped in a dark void with her anxiety, which grew bigger and more terrifying until it consumed her whole. This was a turning point for Myo because she realized that her anxiety had become too much to handle.
That sounds like a really intense dream. Did Myo seek professional help after that?
Charlotte offered to take Myo to a therapist, but unfortunately, Myo was too afraid to go. She didn't want anyone to know how bad things had gotten, not even her best friend.
Wow. That's understandable, but also concerning. So, how did Myo end up finding the app that made things worse?
One day, while Myo was home alone, Charlotte sent her a link to an app that was supposed to help with anxiety. Myo was hesitant at first, but she eventually decided to give it a try.
And how did the app affect Myo's anxiety?
Initially, the app seemed harmless, with cute graphics and calming music. However, as Myo used it more and more, she noticed some strange things happening. The app would ask personal questions about her fears and anxieties and often give her advice that made her feel worse.
That sounds like the app was doing more harm than good. Did Myo realize this and try to stop using it?
Myo became obsessed with the app, using it constantly to track her anxiety and try to manage it. But the more she used it, the worse her anxiety became. She started having panic attacks more frequently, and her thoughts became more and more irrational.
That's really concerning. So, how did things escalate to the point where Myo was self-harming?
One night, as Myo was using the app, she heard a voice whispering to her. It was soft and soothing at first, but as Myo listened more closely, she realized that it was telling her to hurt herself. Myo tried to stop using the app, but she couldn't. It had taken over her life, just like her anxiety had. The voice became louder and more insistent until Myo felt like she had no choice but to listen.
That's a really scary situation. What happened when Charlotte found out about what was going on?
Charlotte came over to check on Myo, and she found her friend lying on the floor, barely conscious, with cuts all over her arms. Myo had been so consumed by the app and the voice in her head that she had resorted to self-harm to try and make it stop.
That's a really heartbreaking ending to the story. Do you have any final thoughts or takeaways from this experience?